You're listening to the Reality of It All podcast, candid conversations about today's hot topics. And now here's your host, Tracey Osborne. Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the show. All right, ladies, today we are going to be talking about women's health and sexual wellness and overall vaginal health and well-being. Because, you know, we got to take care of that vajayjay. She's our girl, right? So today with me is Heather Florio. She is the CEO of Desert Harvest. They are a leader in pelvic pain and vaginal health space. And she is going to really, help give us some rundown on, how we can create or how we can just take better care of ourselves. Totally. So Heather, welcome to the show.
Hi, Tracey. Thanks for having me.
Well, I am excited to have you, because I think vaginal health and well-being is something that we don't talk about. Nobody talks about this with us. Our moms don't talk about it with us. Our doctors don't really talk about it with, it's just kind of like it's there, just keep it clean and you're good to go. And,
exactly.
There's a little bit more than that. And there's things that I think people that happen with our, our pH balance and all of that kind of stuff that people don't really understand or realize. So I think this is going to be a really important topic for our listeners. So I'm glad to have you.
Oh, thank you. Yeah. Vaginal health is so critical for women. And for so long, we haven't even been taught enough, and we still are continually not taught enough on how our bodies function as women. And we have so much going on down there from our bladder, our reproductive organs, it becomes a myriad of problems for us, especially after childbirth. There's, we just do so many things to our bodies down there. So it is very critical. And, I come from the 90s, 80s and 90s, where it was like, let's abstinence. We're not going to tell you anything about your body or how to function or how to have safe sex.
Exactly. Me too.
Yeah. Yeah. And so for me, it's been really important in this journey with Desert Harvest for me to be able to create products that can make a difference in a woman's life, that can give them the ability to have sex safely, and comfortably. And so, like, for instance, our Aloe Glide 100% natural sexual lubricant, this is meant to help mimic a woman's own natural moisture down there. And so, as we know, for so many different reasons, not just menopausal, we get vaginal dryness down there. It happens no matter what age we are. And we don't have to be embarrassed by that. We need to know that is just part of the function of our bodies that can happen. And so we don't sell Aloe Glide just for sex. It is more therapeutic too. We have women that insert it vaginally on a daily basis just to help keep the tissues healthy. And what makes Desert Harvest Aloe Glide so unique is that aloe acts as a carrier. So it helps go down through all the layers of the tissue and helps push your own natural moisture up. So it's helping to make those tissues naturally healthy. But one of the big things that women don't know about with lubricants, you mentioned pH. pH is very important. Our biome down there is meant to be very acidic. And so optimal vaginal pH is a 4.5. Almost every product we introduce to our biome down there throws that off. Sperm is a 7 or an 8. Typical body washes that are out on the market, 7 or 8. So we are constantly introducing things down there that just constantly throw off our biome. But what most women don't realize is that osmolality is a very important key thing to choosing a lubricant. There was a study done by the World Health Organization in 2016, and this was for third world country sex workers. So they were looking at what kind of lubricants would be safe to give to these, because in certain countries, dry sex is something that is sought after, unfortunately, horrible for a woman. So they wanted to figure out how they could make this healthier and safer for a woman. And so in looking at all these different lubricants, and just so you understand, osmolality is how fluid water flows in and out of our cells. And the minute we introduce into our vaginal cells, our epithelial wall cell, our vaginal wall, and anytime we introduce anything chemical into our vagina, we are literally causing damage to our vaginal wall, to those epithelial cell layers, because chemicals cause them to dry out and just literally like fall off. And so it is so critical. This is our barrier to bacteria, yeast, STIs, and we are constantly damaging it. In the study that the World Health Organization did in 2016, out of all the lubricants that they tested on the market, there are currently only, and gladly, we are one of those. There are currently only 3 lubricants on the market that are isoosmolar. That means that it mimics a woman's natural osmolality. So in woman's natural osmolality is 290. So you don't want to stray too far, maybe within 50 or so of that number, if that. And so, like, for instance, Desert Harvest osmolality of our AlloGlide is 308. And this is required testing by the FDA if they have a lubricant. So a sexual lubricant is required to be a medical device. And unfortunately, with the days of COVID right now, there has not been a lot of enforcement. There's been a lot of things that have popped up lubricant wise that may not be an actual FDA approved medical device, but it is required as part of the FDA medical testing that they get that osmolality level checked now. And so this is hugely important for women, but most of and I won't go into brands, but I will say most of the brands you see on the store shelves and that you'd know off the top of your head, for instance, their osmolality was like 10,000. 9,000. And so here you are, you need to be around 290 and you're just off the charts with most products. And don't even get me started on warming lubricants. Those are the worst thing ever made for a woman's body.
I had this conversation the other day, actually, for one of the other episodes. We were talking about, female pleasure, orgasm, and all that stuff. And we were talking about the lubricants. And I'd asked her about, baby oil, KY, all of the normal stuff that we go to. And, and she was saying how bad they are for us. And she mentioned that the warming lubricants actually dry out the vaginal walls, and that's what creates the heat.
Yes. And they can actually cause desensitization issues down there.
Wow.
And cause some nerve damage. So realistically, those things are horrible for our bodies. Now, when we go the other way, and this can even focus for men or for women, anally, you actually do not want an acidic lubricant with and hot, that type of osmolality. pH is more critical anally, because literally if you put something more acidic, like our AlloGlide down there, it is actually going to cause that. I mean, it is the epithelial cells within the anal canal are 10 times more sensitive. So if you're using a standard lubricant, you want a very alkaline lubricant back there, because the minute you introduce a pH balanced acidic lubricant that's meant for the vagina, the epithelial cells are literally just shed off in like 2 seconds. It is so sensitive back there. So when we talk about anal lube, you don't want to be using vaginal lube and anal lube and use the same lube for both. You really want something that is very, and this gets where you get into the conversations. This is what makes silicone, even though they're chemical based for anal pleasure. The thing is they're very alkaline. So they're going to be on that 7 or that 8 scale. And that's what makes those type of lubricants so good for anal use.
Wow. Wow. Yeah, I'm sitting here, I'm pushing 50 and I'm thinking, I'm well versed in this area and I'm listening to you and I'm going, I don't know jack shit. Yeah. So this is really fascinating.
And this kind of rolls into the book that I had mentioned to you earlier. So this fall, I was lucky enough to be able to collaborate with an amazing pelvic floor physical therapist and author. Her name is Ingrid Harm Hernandez, and she is over at Duke University. Well, she just retired. She's been at Duke University for over 30 years, and she kind of helped grow this program into what it is. And, you could go back to 2015 and most people wouldn't even know what pelvic floor physical therapy is. Luckily, it's becoming part of the conversation for women and men alike. Men think that they're excluded in this, and men aren't very interested always in pelvic floor physical therapy because it can involve some anal stimulation because that's how they access a majority of their pelvic floor muscles. But and it becomes a scary thing. It becomes an unknown. So Ingrid wrote this amazing book, her methodology for the past 30 so years, and was called The Musculoskeletal Mystery, and was able to talk about the process, understand if you're getting this diagnosis, you could be pelvic floor could benefit you here if you have interstitial cystitis, if you have endometriosis, if you have, so this kind of goes down the gambit of all different urinary incontinence, fecal incontinence. It goes down and then talks about the collaborative team approach of working with your gynecologist, your urologist, and creating a team approach to pelvic floor physical therapy and helping to understand it and understand how you could do some exercises at home and feel comfortable about understanding it. Or maybe if you don't feel comfortable, utilizing the guide as a tool to help guide your pelvic floor journey. And for those that don't know it, I mean, so much of our pelvic floor muscles play such a part in our pelvic pain. And that goes back into that conversation again, where we're talking about our bladder and all of our reproductive organs and we don't realize that so many things, whether it's childbirth, whether it's riding a bicycle, all different kinds of things can impact sex itself, can have such an impact on our pelvic floor. And maintaining that health of the muscles and the musculature in the pelvic floor is going to benefit your overall body. And so it's something that really has not been addressed over the years. Is really a growing field. And I am privileged to be part of that journey of that field, being able to contribute and help, with tools and things that are needed throughout the process.
This is so interesting because, like you, I grew up in the 80s and, we didn't talk about that kind of stuff. I mean, when I first got my period, my stepmom sent me to the school nurse to have the conversation, I come out wearing one of those freaking horse pads that makes you feel like you're wearing a pack of diapers. Yes. And, you know what I'm talking about. So we didn't talk about that kind of stuff. And I never really paid much attention to it. I mean, it wasn't until, this is kind of embarrassing to say, but it wasn't until just a few years ago that I actually learned you did not urinate and menstruate from the same hole. I for years, my whole life, I thought there was just one opening down there. Come to find out, no, there's not. And that's because we don't educate our females, our daughters and all of that on the female body. So
no, most people think everything right there that you see and can touch is your vagina. Yeah. We don't realize that the inner part is only our vagina. We have the vulva and the bull. We have you have the vestibule. We have all of these different components that most women don't even know make up part of their body.
Huh.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's
yeah. And let alone learn all the muscles, the bulbar cavernous, the ischial cavern, learning all of these different pelvic floor muscles that most of them will be like, oh my gosh, it's my sciatica or something. The only thing that we know about going on, in our back region all the way down into, buttocks and thighs.
What is the difference between like pelvic floor exercises and like Kegels?
Kegels. Okay. So this is a big misconception. Many people think that with Kegels, that they must be weak. They need to strengthen their muscles. And yes, some people do that, and that's part of that journey. But this is where you need a pelvic floor muscle. It could be that your muscles are too weak, but it could be that you're doing more damage because your muscles are tense and they need to be released. And that goes into different types. That's where it goes into that trigger point therapy that can be done in a pelvic PT's office. That goes into, a lot of the different treatment plans. And this is why it is so critical to really do an assessment, whether you can afford to, and this is the problem, we go into the whole insurance conversation. Not every insurance plan covers PT. Pelvic PT is not cheap. So that's why, we created this book, The Musculoskeletal Mystery, because at least you could do some self-assessment on your muscles, understand where they are, how they feel, do kind of a self journey with that. But if you can go to a pelvic PT, it'll leaps and bounds, because it will allow you to get a full overview of what you need and what you don't need. Kegels have become such a popular thing in our society, and everybody knows them and they think, oh, this is what I need to do. But in reality, you could be causing more damage.
Wow. Wow. Yeah. I'm one of those. I've had 4 kids, 6 pregnancies, and it's like, okay, I need to do Kegels. I need to tighten up down there and all of that. And I may very well, who knows, be doing harm. So that's really, really fascinating, really interesting. Huh.
Yeah, you've really got to be able to learn where you might have muscle weakness or you might have too tense and too tight of a muscle, and learn to utilize and understand the difference.
Now, is that something that can help with, like incontinence? So for those of us who have had kids, we sneeze, we pee, right? So is that something that can help with that?
Yes, that is a common misconception. That is not okay to sneeze and pee. and we've learned in our society that a little bit of leakage is okay. And then that is not okay. You are leaking, you have incontinence of some sort, whether it's fecal, whether it's urinary, go see a pelvic PT, because that is one of the best treatable things that they treat, is that, let alone endometriosis and interstitial cystitis. And there's a whole host of things that pelvic PT can help with, but definitely incontinence, and having that conversation and understanding that what we would normally think is okay in our society may actually not be.
Wow. I have an appointment with my doctor at the end of the month for my yearly, so I will be sure and talk with him about this. Yes. Now, you guys have you're getting ready to launch a pelvic health vibrator that is to help diagnose and treat pelvic health issues. What's that all about?
Yes. So can't go into full detail about it because we're still in the prototype phase, but essentially,
okay.
Yeah. So this particular product will be released sometime this year, and it will be unlike anything else that's on the market, and it'll allow us to utilize a tool at home in the comfort of their own home, and then seek out help and alternatives that they may not know that they need or that they have. We go into that conversation about whether your muscles are strong or whether your muscles are too strong or too weak. This will be a very helpful tool to be able to gauge that from an at-home perspective. And so we hope to be launching that sometime this year.
Wow, that's great. It definitely, want to make sure we stay in touch and have you back on when that launches to talk about that some more. So,
oh yeah, we're looking forward to that. This one is going to be revolutionary for women and men. So we're really excited about it.
Wow. Oh my God. I'm just learning so much. I'm just like, wow. That's all I can really say. Now what about like pelvic floor wands? What are those?
Okay, so those are used a lot. They look like they might be some dildo type device or something like that, and they can be very scary sometimes.
Okay.
When you look at them, especially if you're not used to using maybe sexual aids at home, but essentially these wands are meant for helping to release the muscles. So when I talk about the muscles being very tensed up, it's like a trigger point therapy. You imagine if you rub a muscle on the outside of your skin and it begins to release that tension and release that muscle that might be tightened around a nerve or something like that. This is what it's doing for your pelvic floor muscles. But obviously we have to do it internally, vaginally or anally for women and anally for men. And then there's also options to do, some trigger point therapy on the outer part of the body, and utilizing the exact same tool. And so there are a lot of great wands out there. They're kind of starting to flood the market now. My particular preference is there's a company called IC Relief. They make a wand that is made out of a borosilicate German glass. And you think glass, oh my gosh, it's going to break, it's going to shatter, it's going to chip. And amazingly enough, it does not. But it's the biggest thing is that this glass is not porous. One of the things you have, just like with any sex toys or anything else like that, you have to be really careful about cleaning, because most of the substrates, all the other substrates, silicone, all different types of plastic, things like that, these are all going to be porous materials. So if you're not properly cleaning after every use and being very careful, you're going to be introducing bacteria and other things like that into your biome. And so I find that's kind of why I like this IC Relief product, because it really, you don't have to worry about that. You don't have to worry about, did I clean this enough? Is this going to be safe enough? And so this is why that's kind of like my go-to one that I recommend to people. Gotcha. And it is one that we ended up listing in the book as a result, because I'm very much about cleanliness and ease of use.
Now, we were talking before the show about, how companies like Amazon are labeling these as sex toys or adult content. And you were telling me that that might be changing. It hasn't changed yet, but that it may be changing, and they're creating a new category called sexual wellness.
Yes. So interesting. I don't know. Half the time I don't know what Amazon's doing.
I don't think anybody does.
No. And so earlier last year, we got a notice, and I'm sure many other people did, from Amazon, talking about labeling of their, products, relabeling pelvic health tools. So these pelvic wands you're talking about, our new device that comes out, the lubricants, everything else like that, anything that's used. You talk about Kegel exercise things, devices. You talk about all these different things that are going to be coming that we have out on the market. And right now they're listed as health aids. And the problem is that Amazon is now going to require, well, at least the notice earlier this year said that they were going to start classifying all of those under adult products. Which could lead some people to, some people already feel uncomfortable with this because they don't fully understand pelvic floor physical therapy. You look at those tools and they'll be like, yeah, I'm good, and so it can already be a hesitancy, but to classify it under adult products versus something that's used for a medical need, I think did a real disservice. And there was a big, there was a lot of conversation created in regards to that. And ultimately Amazon I think it was November, don't quote me on this, I think it was like November 15th, 2021, they were supposed to make this change. And that date passed and they said they were putting it off till the new year. So interestingly enough, Amazon has created a new kind of like sexual wellness category. And maybe this is going to be their fix to not lump all of the healthcare products under that and treat sexual health as a type of health and wellness, which is really what it should be, because there's a reason why our bodies do this. There's a reason why our bodies function and do this. And there's the reason why our bodies need to do this. And so we should start treating sex less as this dirty thing that needs to be hidden behind the door and more of a health and wellness conversation. And I think that if this is the route Amazon is taking, that's a good one. But they haven't said what they're doing to us yet. Right. We just got that random notice earlier in 2021, and then we heard they were going to delay it, and then we haven't heard anything since.
Well, and I would hope that, doing things like what you're doing, coming out and speaking about stuff and having conversations like this will help to, open the eyes of these companies that, there's a difference between just sex toys and sexual wellness, and that they need to be classified separately. So hopefully this, conversations like this will do some good.
Yes. I really do hope so. Cause the conversation needs to change. I mean, I've desensitized my own children.
Right. Sure.
I have 2 adult boys now, and I think that they know more about a woman's body than most women know about a woman's body.
That's good though.
Yeah, I've made sure that they understand. They understand, that should be a whole conversation. Men should equally understand women's bodies and vice versa, so that you understand how they function, what they're doing biologically, and you can understand the needs of each other in a relationship, in a sexual relationship. You can, and it also makes it feel safer, especially for women. It can create an environment where if we're better educated, then we better understand going into this. And it's not like, oh my gosh, we just have to rip all each other's clothes off and we understand, how to, and I mean, of course we're all going to do that in some way or another, but at least this way, it creates a thing where if you understand a woman's body better, this was always important for me, for my children, that they understood the needs of a woman and understand when she was giving those needs and when she was not. And so I've been very vocal with them. I'm probably the embarrassing mom.
That's good though, because you're teaching them that it's okay to talk about and it's nothing to be embarrassed about. And so they'll continue that conversation with their friends and with their children, so it's a great thing. Well, Heather, this has been incredibly educational and eye-opening for me, and I'm sure for our listeners too. So thank you so much for coming on and talking with me today.
Oh, thank you so much, Tracey. I really appreciate you having me. And
my pleasure.
And especially here in this wonderful new year where hopefully it's going to be way better in 2021.
We sure hope so.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, thank you again for joining us. And listeners, I will have all of Heather's information down in the show notes. Just head over to therealityofitall.com and pull up Heather's episode, and all her contact information, link to her website, book, all that good stuff will be there for you. So as always, thank you so much for tuning in, and we'll talk to you in the next show. That's it for today's show. Thanks for listening. Be sure you subscribe to us on your favorite podcast platform. Don't forget to follow us on Facebook, Twitter, Pinterest, Instagram, and TikTok.